Doug Wareham is the president and CEO of the Kansas Bankers Association. Prior to the KBA, Doug was senior vice president of government affairs for the Kansas Grain and Feed Association. He is a 1992 graduate of Kansas State University. So welcome to this episode of Future Success, Doug.
Well, hi, Chuck. Thank you very much for having me. You went way back with 1992. It doesn't sound like that long ago, but that was a long time ago.
You know, the years, they just fly by, they say, when you're having fun. Has it been that way for you?
Oh, absolutely. I've been blessed with the career opportunities I've had, and frankly, I'd like it to slow down a little bit. I'm 57, so I've got some runway left, but I'm not in a hurry to retire. So I still love what I do. So I think you're right. If you're having fun, time flies.
That's great. Well, I'm approaching 60 this year. So anyway, we can talk about our old age later. But this is an exciting month. April is JAG-K with KBA month. This is our 4th annual event, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I do want to talk about your career. As I mentioned, a K-State grad, and you've been involved with government affairs for most of your adult life. I'd like to find out a little bit about yourself before you were in your professional career, why you chose it, where you grew up, just a little bit about yourself and how you got on this career path.
Sure, Chuck. Well, I tell everybody that asks me, I'm a product of 4-H, FFA, and the United States Marine Corps. I am a Northeast Kansas farm kid. Grew up on a farm that my family still owns and operates northeast of Holton, Kansas. Grew up on the farm and really followed in my father's footsteps, migrating to Kansas State University, and really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life professionally. So I majored in agricultural economics, and I ended up graduating with an agriculture education degree. So I got really close to teaching, which was the same track my father took when he went to Kansas State 40 years earlier. But like my dad, I didn't end up in the classroom. My dad ended up being an agricultural banker and bought land and started his own farm and ranch operation. For me, I was always blessed to have great mentors, and one of the most significant and impactful mentors in my life was a high school teacher, a gentleman named Lynn Rundle, who ran our agricultural education. Back then they called it VOAG department. And he's the one that actually got me an interview. My senior year at K-State, he got me an interview with the Kansas Grain and Feed Association. And it wasn't really until that time I hearkened back to, I was actually a page when I was about 12 years old. But because when I got this interview, I realized, well, what's this association business all about? Grain and feed and an association. And what I related it to is, they advocate on behalf of the agribusiness industry in Kansas, which in Kansas, that's grain elevators, feed industry, feed companies, and fertilizer and chemical companies. So for a farm kid, I had a great mentor, and that led me to this world of association management. And so I worked for the agribusiness associations of Kansas, grain, feed, fertilizer, and chemical. And that led me to jumping over to the banking industry 21 years ago, and the opportunity to start lobbying, being an advocate for community banks across Kansas. So again, I'm not sure, I don't think there was ever a point through grade school or high school that I thought someday I'm going to grow up and be a lobbyist. I'm going to be part of a team that works for the banking industry, advocating and educating and making sure they have the products and services they need. But that's the path that led me to where I'm at.
Tell us a little bit more about that. You were in the State House many, many days and months out of the year advocating for agribusiness, and then the KBA. So tell us a little bit about that job more specifically, and then how you decided to apply for the president and CEO position. And then we want to talk about maybe the differences between what you were doing as a lobbyist and then what you do now.
Sure. And my very first job right out of college, I really wasn't directly involved in government relations. When I went to work for the Kansas Grain and Feed Association, I was their director of member services, which meant I traveled the state, calling on the members, just asking them about any of their needs, and of course also trying to encourage them to continue being a member, because any association, you're being a member is volunteer. I mean, they don't have to belong. So I started out doing that, but I very quickly recognized that what I was most interested in when I sat in on the board meetings or the legislative committee meetings for the agribusiness groups was I was very interested in the political process. And again, my only real exposure up to that point was when I was a page. I was a page in the House and a page in the Senate when I was 12, 13 years old. And then I did get to testify. I was a state FFA officer when I was at Kansas State. And I did get to testify once on behalf of Kansas FFA before I can't remember if it was the Senate or House Ag Committee. So I got a little bit exposure, but I literally fell in love with the process. And I've been a state lobbyist, a state registered lobbyist, which means you get one of these, you get a name badge. And I've had one of these for 30 years in a row now. And I literally love being part of the policy process. Now, when I get accused all the time, Chuck, of people think, well, Doug, where did you go to law school? And I love when people ask me that question, because I always say Kansas State. And they're like, what? Kansas State doesn't have a law school? Well, the reality is, I'm not an attorney. And if I had to go do it all over again, knowing I was going to spend the first 10 years of my career working for agribusiness and agriculture, our state's #1 overall industry, and then transition to KBA, where I work with community bank leaders from across the state. But I always remind people in Kansas, because agriculture is such a big part of our economy, in Kansas, agriculture banking, ag banking is banking. It's, 70% of our banks in Kansas, it's their number one commercial lending activity is supporting agriculture, farmers and ranchers and agribusiness. And if I had to go do it all over again, having an ag education degree, I just can't imagine having a degree that would have served me better, both working for the ag groups and coming to the KBA. Number one, if you train to teach, and I do consider myself a teacher, even though student teaching, I actually enjoyed student teaching. And someday, Chuck, when I retire, I may do that on a part-time basis. I always liked kids that I felt like were challenged maybe at home or something. I always wanted to try to connect with that kid. But if you can teach 7 hours of class a day, you can be an effective state house lobbyist. And I'm living proof, because it's really, a lot of it's the same concepts. Every hour, every teacher in Kansas has a new group. Their new class comes in and they're expecting to be informed and educated and frankly, a little bit entertained. Well, and Chuck, I know you know this too, with your background in policy development, that's really what the legislative process is. My job and others on our team that go to the State House or that talk to our federal congressional delegation, our job is to educate. Simply put, it's to inform, to educate, it's develop relationships so they trust the information you're delivering. And if you do that in a positive, even sometimes fun way, sometimes it's not fun at the State House. People get upset when an issue's not going their way or the other. But honestly, it's even okay when a little bit of humor gets brought into the process. And I just admire the people that are willing to serve in the legislature, both here in Topeka or Congress, because it truly is service. And so, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm still a teacher at heart. And that served me well. And when I hire people to advocate and work here on my team, that's really what I'm looking for. Who's somebody that's going to be a good teacher and educator that develops trust? That's what it takes to be an effective lobbyist. And I think that's what earned me the right to step into the CEO role here at the KBA. I still lobby, but now I have a 42-person staff team that does everything from lobbying to education, to legal and compliance support for our bankers, to insurance services for our industry. So I've got a bigger hat now, but I've got a whole team of teachers.
So tell us a little bit more about the KBA. You mentioned several of the services, but in a minute, tell us what the KBA does to help its member banks.
Sure. Well, we're comprised of, there are 184 banks in Kansas. All but two of them, 182 of them, belong to the KBA. So again, it's voluntary. And our primary role is to advocate for them at the Kansas State House and in Washington, D.C. But we also have a very diverse team that helps banks with legal issues, or banks are heavily regulated, so they have a lot of compliance issues they deal with on how they operate. And so we support our banks in that role. We literally do training for every level of banking employee, from bank presidents and CEOs to frontline customer service tellers and IT experts, cybersecurity experts that work in banks, to lenders of all kinds, agriculture, commercial, home mortgage. We do all that training. We do about 300 training programs a year for over 5,000 bankers. And then finally, banks are a business, so they need insurance. They need insurance to cover the bank building, to cover their board liability. And, I don't want to get wonky in that, but we provide every insurance product, including healthcare, for banks and their employees. So that's the scope of what the KBA does.
Wow, that's great. I mentioned at the outset that we are in our fourth year of, it started as a 1-week engagement. It was JAG-K week with the KBA. Now we're doing the full month of April. And from our perspective, it's a great opportunity for our students to learn what bankers do, what they're doing in that big building, and some of the opportunities from a career perspective. Can you tell me how this helps the KBA, if at all, or what it means to your members this month, the JAG-K with the KBA month?
Well, this is an important month. I can't believe it's already April, Chuck, but here we are, and excited about JAG-K with the KBA month. This is an incredibly important partnership, and I think there's 3 key benefits to this partnership to both sides. Number one, we're looking for the next generation of Kansas banker. So the JAG-K program gives us an opportunity for Kansas bankers. I know we're going to be in over 20 classrooms over the course of the next 30 days. It puts Kansas bankers in front of high school students to hopefully inspire them and make them think about a career in banking. We have opportunities in all those work fields that I mentioned in banking. So workforce development, hopefully that's a win-win for students looking for career opportunities, career paths. We know it's a win for our banks to be able to, showcase those opportunities. The second thing is financial literacy is a big part of our education process, and we have a foundation that the KBA and our banks support, that we invest a significant amount of money every year to educate the public about financial literacy, to teach and help advise all Kansans about how to make safe and sound financial decisions and plan for their financial future. And that's important if you're in high school, or it's important if you're approaching retirement, and every step of your life in between. So JAG-K, this program gives us that chance. And last but not least, and it relates to financial literacy, we're seeing a tremendous amount of fraud and scams that are tied to, unfortunately, financial services. There are a lot of bad actors on the internet, on social media platforms. They're using our phones against us by having phone calls come to you, and it looks like it's your bank, but it's not. It's a criminal. And so JAG-K is a way for us to educate high school kids. The fastest growing scammed group, Chuck, it's not elderly people. It's people 30 to 39 are the fastest growing group demographic that's being scammed, because young people trust technology. I need young people to help explain technology to me. But young people trust technology. And unfortunately, we all have to be very cognizant of the threats of bad actors that use technology against us and want to steal our money through scams using phones or online platforms. So JAG-K, it's a great way for us to reach out to students so they can learn about fraud and scam prevention early in life, and frankly, help teach their family and friends for the rest of their life to make sure people don't ever lose a dime to a criminal.
Great. Well, Doug, we appreciate the KBA. We appreciate your time today. I want to end with this question. When you're not advocating for Kansas banks, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm a guitar player, Chuck. So I'll probably never make it to the voice tryouts. But I'll tell you, if I did, my song would be Hurt So Good. But I'm not a good enough guitar player. I'd want to have the voice show band be my backup. But I love music. My dad played the guitar when I was a little kid. He doesn't anymore. But I inherited that from him. And that's kind of my go-to relaxation time, is just a little picking and grinning.
That's great. Well, thank you, Doug. And for all our listeners, may all your future success start now.